what is intelligent design? What is it? Because I know you have, when I look in the media, they constantly misunderstand and probably intentionally tweak what intelligent design is. In fact, almost every time I see the media interview it, they say it's the idea that something is too complex to have happened by chance. But you say differently.
That's right. The way I would define intelligent design, and I think that this is the definition which is really getting out there now, is the study of patterns in nature that are best explained as the product of intelligence. So let me say that again. The study of patterns in nature best explained as the product or result of intelligence. And the thing is, when you think of it that way, there are lots of special sciences that are already doing intelligent design. Think of archaeology, or the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Is that signal from outer space that's coming to us, is it the result of an intelligence, an alien intelligence, or is it just random radio noise? You know, we draw these distinctions all over the place. Archaeology, is that a random chunk of rock, or is it an arrowhead? So in a lot of cases, though, it's not a problem because it doesn't challenge this materialistic or atheistic mindset that's so prevalent in the academy. But what happens when you start looking inside the cell or the human body or in life and you start finding signs of intelligence there? Well, then it's a whole new ballgame, because what modern evolutionary biology teaches us is that we're the result of an accidental historical process, okay, where there's no intelligence involved, at least none that we can detect scientifically. Well, what if we take those methods of design detection that are there in a whole bunch of other fields already, forensic science, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and we start applying those in biology, and we find, lo and behold, that life is in fact designed. Well, that changes the ballgame entirely, because then also you have to ask yourself, who or what is that designer? In SETI, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, an atheistic scientist could say, well, that's just an alien that evolved the same way that we did. But if life itself is designed, then that could not be an evolved intelligence. It would be an unevolved intelligence. And so suddenly evolution isn't the be-all and end-all. It's got to look to something else, an information source, an intelligence that's beyond the world. And scientists, if they're atheists, and a lot of them are, they don't want to go there. And so I think that's one reason why there's a lot of controversy connected with this topic.
So intelligent design is the search for intelligent patterns in nature. Now, when it comes to studying human life, like the cell inside the body, probably the biggest objection I hear from people, they say, is, well, that's not science, because now you're invoking some supernatural designer. Science studies natural effects and causes.
Yeah, that's an objection that comes up frequently. It's interesting, Richard Dawkins, when he's interviewed in Expelled by Ben Stein, will allow that life on Earth could have been designed by some super intelligent alien, you know, but God is not going to be an option. But I think what you have to understand with intelligent design is that it's not trying to get at the precise cause of things. It's trying to see what those patterns are and do they point us to an intelligence. So it's not asking, is it supernatural, is it natural? You know, it's just saying, what are the patterns there? And it seems to me that science can't just say, well, we can't study supernatural causes. You know, if supernatural causes have an effect, we can study those effects. Maybe we can't trace them still further to some supernatural source, but we can see it, that at least there's a pattern that points us to intelligence. So it seems to me that that's a red herring. Also, I mean, there's this whole question of how do you define science? I think there's often this sense that, well, science deals with natural causes and that's just the way science is defined. Well, no, I mean, science has been around for 2,400 years at least. It goes back to the pre-Socratic philosophers. I mean, what we call science is actually a fairly new word to designate what traditionally has been called natural philosophy. And just what constitutes natural philosophy, that's been debated. I mean, it's been negotiated over the course of history. It's not something that's written in stone. You look at the dominant science of the ancient world was Aristotelian or Stoic science, and that was teleological. There was design there was purpose. That was something that was in science. By present standards, that would be supernatural, because what they mean by supernatural is anything that can't be reduced to matter, energy, governed by unbroken material laws or principles. And that's actually a very narrow definition of nature. What if nature does have teleological or purposive processes working in it? Well, then in a sense, intelligence can be perfectly natural. You know, so it's. I think there's a lot of in this debate, a lot of what goes on is just trying to define science so that intelligent design is something disreputable and kept outside of science. And so I think this is also one reason why this topic is so controversial, because it comes not just at intelligence in biology, but the very definition of science and how we understand science. But if you look at, I mean, you just look even since early modern science, since Isaac Newton, you know, science back in Newton's day, it was largely dealt with deterministic processes, things which have to follow one after the other. With the rise of quantum mechanics, chance comes into science. Chance was not really a fundamental category in scientific explanation. What we're saying is that intelligence, information, design needs to be a fundamental category of scientific explanation. And so there's precedent to science opening up to new modes of explanation. And nothing about these patterns in nature that point us to intelligence forces this to be a supernatural intelligence. I think one thing to keep in mind is that what intelligent design is doing is getting at the proximate cause, the immediate cause of something, and saying, is there an intelligence involved? But intelligences can work through other intelligences. I mean, if God created nature with intelligent processes that then produce us, in a sense, those processes can be perfectly natural. So, this move to say that it forces you to supernaturalism is not, that doesn't hold up.